There are moments in life when a simple stop on the side of the road becomes the beginning of something extraordinary. He was just a tired single father driving his little girl home. She was a disciplined police officer doing her duty. But when she saw the worn wedding ring on his hand and heard the innocent truth spoken by his daughter, the world seemed to stop. And with one unexpected sentence, she broke professional distance and opened a door neither of them expected to walk through. Today you'll hear a story of quiet hearts, second chances, and the kind of love that arrives softly after life has already tested the soul. Before we begin, if stories like this touch your heart, stories of kindness, healing, and hope, we warmly invite you to join our channel. Your support helps us continue sharing gentle moments for those who still believe in goodness. Now, let us begin. The police officer was writing a single dad a ticket when she said, "If you weren't married." The Texas sun hung low as afternoon eased toward dusk, soft gold spilling across quiet suburban streets. Heat shimmered above the asphalt, catching dust like floating memories in the light. In a modest pickup truck, rolling past a stretch of trim lawns and American flags. Mike Doyle drove, with one hand resting loosely on the wheel, the other drumming his thigh. Restless, distracted. He shouldn't have been distracted. He knew better. Years of discipline had carved that into him. Airfields, checklists, the strict rhythm of aviation maintenance, the way one loose bolt could decide a life. But today his mind was far from torque gauges and flight lines. It was on the small voice in the back seat. "Daddy, look a butterfly." Emma's excitement was a spark of pure childhood, bright, unfiltered hope. Mike caught the flutter of orange wings in the rearview mirror. She pressed her tiny palms to the glass braids, swinging sundress dotted with flowers, like she'd collected spring and wore it proudly. He smiled, tired, but real. "I see it, Peanut," he murmured. Emma giggled softly, settling back into her seat legs, swinging. For her, the world was still simple. A butterfly was magic. A sunny street was adventure. A ride home with her father meant safety. Laughter, life. Mike envied her, and in that envy lived a quiet ache. He glanced at the left hand on the wheel, at the simple silver ring worn smooth by time and worry. He'd polished it once. Now it bore tiny scars like him. He exhaled too long, too heavy, and only then noticed the flash of red and blue lights blooming behind him. Damn. He checked the speedometer. 10 miles over. He pressed his lips together, jaw flexing. Most days he was careful. Most days he moved like a man avoiding ripples. Staying small, staying quiet. But it only took one moment to slip. He pulled over, engine ticking faintly as it cooled. Emma lifted her head. "Are we getting ice cream?" she asked, hopeful. Mike almost laughed, the kind that hurts more than it releases. "Not this time, kiddo." "Oh." She paused, then brightened. Maybe she likes ice cream too. Mike blinked. Who the officer, Emma whispered loudly like sharing a secret. Before he could answer, the patrol door opened. A woman stepped out, uniform crisp in the summer air badge catching light. Officer Brooke Mason. Tall, steady posture, blonde hair pulled neatly back. Eyes focused, controlled. Duty first, heart second. Mike recognized that kind of armor. He'd worn it for years. She approached his window with practiced calm. "License and registration," Sir Mike nodded, slow, courteous. "Yes, ma'am." His voice was low, steady, the kind tempered by loss and long days. He handed the papers through the window. Brooke accepted them, glancing inside the truck, and saw Emma. The shift was tiny, subtle enough only the observant would notice. Her shoulders softened half a degree. "Hi there," she said gently. Emma waved, delighted. "Hi. We saw a butterfly." It was orange. Brooke's features tipped toward a smile, involuntary, fleeting. Then she straightened. Professionalism, reasserting. You were driving 10 over, she told Mike. School zone hour just ended. Still risky. I know, he answered quietly. Just tired day. Tired isn't an excuse for unsafe. She returned, stern but not unkind. Mike nodded. Took it. No fight in him. No ego. Brooke scanned him a second longer. Most drivers had excuses ready. Anger. Defensiveness. His calm disarmed her more than aggression would have. She started writing. Emma leaned forward again, eyes curious. Daddy, yeah. Why does she look sad? Mike lifted his gaze. Brooke didn't look sad. Not to most. But Emma noticed things adults tried to bury. He answered softly. Everyone carries something, kiddo. It was then Brooke glanced back and saw the ring. Silver, simple, unmistakably a wedding band. And the way his thumb brushed it unconscious, habit a man holding on to something that used to be here. A life now memory. Her pen slowed. Widowed, she wondered. But officers didn't assume. They observed. She tore the ticket free, hesitated only half a beat, then stepped closer to hand it over. Please be more careful, Mr. Doyle. Mike accepted it with quiet resignation. Yes, ma'am. Her voice lowered just enough. If you weren't wearing that ring. A thought left half-born, suspended in hot, still air. A sentiment she shouldn't have said. Vulnerable. Human. Then reality caught her, and she shook it off. I mean, people see it. They assume you're distracted. Family worries, things like that. Mike dipped his head. Something like that. Emma, innocent as dawn, chimed in soft but clear. Mommy's in heaven. Daddy keeps the ring for love. Brooke's breath caught like someone had tapped her chest from inside. For a heartbeat, the world stilled. Wind quieted. Heat faded. Only the weight of shared human truth remained. Loss recognizes loss, even through a badge, even across a roadside moment. Mike looked away, jaw tight, not from shame, but from memory. Brooke's swallowed voice lower than protocol allowed. I'm sorry. It's all right, Mike said. Polite. Practiced. Life happens. Emma squeezed her plush bunny. Daddy says Mommy sends hugs with sunlight. Brooke's throat worked. She cleared it. A beat too long passed before she stepped back. Please drive safe. Have a good evening. She returned to her patrol car movements a little slower now, as if she carried something heavier than before. Mike watched her go, eyes unreadable. Emma waved enthusiastically. The cruiser pulled away, leaving them in warm quiet again. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Emma's voice broke the silence, soft and curious. Daddy, does your ring make you sad? Mike closed his hand over the band, protective, reverent. No, he whispered. It reminds me of Mommy and who she helped me become. Emma nodded, satisfied with answers. Only children accept so simply. She leaned her head against the seat, humming. Mike folded the ticket, placed it gently beside him, and started the engine. The truck rolled forward, slow, steady. As they turned into their neighborhood, he glanced at the sky. Clouds drifted across golden blue, and light poured between them like benediction. Maybe angels weren't in heaven. Maybe they were 6 years old, with braids and a sundress, and the power to stitch a hurting world back together, one little joy at a time. Across town, Brooke parked her cruiser. She sat in silence, hand paused over her badge. A whisper of guilt mingled with something else. Curiosity, pain she thought she'd buried. She pressed fingers to her chest, the muscle remembering an old wound. If you weren't wearing that ring. She exhaled, shook her head. Duty. Walls. Order. But in her rearview mirror, she saw that little girl's smile. Sometimes a stranger's life touches yours before you understand why. Sometimes a story begins not with fireworks, but with a quiet moment on a sunlit street where grief and grace pass each other in the open. And sometimes one sentence unfinished, unintended, is enough to change everything. Evening seeped into the Doyle home with the soft hush of worn floorboards and quiet memories. The house stood modest, but warm white, siding a porch swing that groaned like an old friend when the wind nudged it, and a small American flag fluttering gently by the steps. Inside, the scent of wood polish and faint lavender lingered, as though someone once cared deeply enough to make a home gentle for love. Mike closed the front door behind him, keys landing in a ceramic dish with a familiar clink. Emma kicked off her shoes, letting them tumble in a cheerful mess. "Can we have spaghetti tonight?" she asked, eyes wide, hands clasped like a tiny negotiator. "We had spaghetti 2 nights ago," Mike replied, as he set the folded ticket carefully, almost ceremonially, on the kitchen counter. "How about chicken and rice?" Emma wrinkled her nose in dramatic protest, then giggled. "Okay, but only if we have the sparkly juice." Mike chuckled. Soft, tired, but real. Sparkling water is not juice. It sparkles. That counts. He tapped her nose gently. "Deal." Emma darted off toward her room, humming some tune she made up on the spot, an endless stream of melody that kept the house alive. Mike watched her disappear around the corner, and for a moment, silence returned, thick, reverent, fragile. His gaze drifted to the counter. The ticket sat there like a quiet judgment, but not from the law, from life. From himself. Not a failure, but a reminder. He picked it up, thumb, dragging along the paper's edge. It's 120. Not devastating, but unwelcome. Another burden in a pile he wouldn't let Emma see. He breathed slowly, steadying. He didn't resent the ticket. There were worse things to carry. On the refrigerator, held by a magnet shaped like a sunflower, was a photo Martha holding Emma as a baby, her hair falling in soft waves, sunlight catching the gold in it. She wasn't looking at the camera, she was looking at Emma, love shining like dawn in her eyes. Mike reached up, touched the edge of the photo lightly. His ring glinted under the kitchen light, catching him off guard. He stared at it, shoulders tightening. A habit, a loyalty, a tether, and a comfort. The metal felt cool, a contrast to the ache beneath it. He whispered, almost as if apologizing to the quiet around him. "I slipped today, Mar. Wasn't watching my speed." His voice trembled just slightly, then steadied. And something happened. Or almost did. He didn't explain, didn't need to. The silence knew. He slid the ticket underneath a small ceramic bowl on the counter. The bowl was painted by a child's hand, Emma's. Crooked hearts, a lopsided sun, and the word Dad in big, uneven letters. Imperfect. Precious. A reminder of why he kept going. He turned to prep dinner, chopping vegetables with practiced rhythm. Cooking wasn't just necessity, it was therapy. Slice, breathe, stir, breathe. Stability in motion. A man creating order in a life that had once unraveled too fast. Behind him, footsteps padded lightly across hardwood. Daddy Emma's voice came small, inquisitive. "Yeah, Peanut." She climbed onto a wooden chair, swinging her legs. "Are you happy?" Mike paused mid-chop, set the knife down gently. He turned, leaning against the counter, wiping his hands on a cloth. There was no hiding from Emma. Her eyes were too clear, too honest. "I'm happy with you," he said truthfully. "But are you happy?" She pressed. That one hit deeper. A 6-year-old asking questions philosophers wrestled with. Mike crouched in front of her, meeting her gaze at eye level. "Some days are harder than others," he admitted. "But even on those days, there's always something good. Like hearing you sing, or watching you chase butterflies." She thought about that, lips pursed, then nodded like she understood all the laws of the universe. "Mommy says you'll be happy again someday." Mike froze, not visibly but inside. His breath caught. When did she tell you that Emma looked toward the family photo shelf, the one bathed in soft lamplight each evening? "In my dreams," she whispered. "She always hugs me. And she says, 'You shouldn't be alone forever.'" A tremor moved through him, barely contained. Dream or memory? Grief or grace? He cupped Emma's cheek. "That's a beautiful dream. She says love is like sunshine. It comes back." Mike's swallowed voice thick. "She always had a way with words." "She says you're still her hero," Emma added quietly. His eyes stung, and he blinked hard. "Come on now," he murmured, clearing his throat. "No making Daddy cry before supper." Emma giggled and wrapped her arms around his neck. He held her tight, not fragile, but protective, like she was the last pure thing in a world that could bruise too easily. When she hopped down and ran off to set the table, Mike stood slowly, leaned both palms on the counter, breathed. The words from Emma swirled like autumn leaves, painful but strangely comforting. He turned toward the hallway, and his gaze caught on a small wooden frame on the wall, a letter behind glass. Martha's handwriting graceful, looping familiar. "My loves, be brave, be gentle. Let life in, even after me, especially after me." He hadn't planned to read it tonight, but some days grief didn't ask permission. Some days it nudged him, prodded him toward the living. He exhaled slowly. "I'm trying," he whispered. "I really am." Dinner came and went in warm little moments, Emma insisting on saying grace for the butterfly and the lady officer, who looked like she needed a hug, and Mike listening. Heart tugged in places he thought had settled. After dishes were stacked and bedtime stories read, "Goodnight Moon" for the 100th time, Emma drifted into dreams, clutching her plush bunny. Mike lingered by her door, watching her breathe softly, innocence rising and falling with each gentle inhale. He walked back to the kitchen, flicked off lights one by one, leaving only the soft glow of the lamp by the framed letter. He picked up the ticket again, not angry, not weighed by punishment, but reflective. Life wasn't about the ticket. It was about the moment it belonged to, a moment where past and possibility collided on a quiet roadside, where a stranger looked at him and saw more than a driver, where grief cracked open just enough to let something like hope peek through. He placed the ticket beneath Martha's framed letter, not hiding it, but honoring where the reminder came from. Then he whispered to the house, to the memory, to whatever heaven listened, "I promised I'd live. I'm still learning how." And somewhere beyond the walls, a night breeze moved through the trees like a sigh of approval from the universe. Or maybe from someone he once loved, because healing didn't always roar. Sometimes it arrived as a whisper at a kitchen counter, wrapped in a child's dream and a widow's vow to try. Morning sunlight broke across quiet streets, like mercy poured from heaven. Gold brushing rooftops, warming dew-kissed lawns, casting long, forgiving shadows. The world looked washed clean, as if the night had spent its hours polishing hope for another day. In the Doyle kitchen, toast popped, coffee steamed, and Emma hummed while coloring at the table. Mike stood at the counter, butter knife paused mid-air as he watched her brow wrinkle in fierce concentration. Her drawing showed 3 stick figures holding hands beneath a bright yellow sun. One was tall, one small, and the third wore a police officer's hat. Mike's chest tightened with a feeling he didn't have a name for. Not yet. He turned back to the toaster. "Big plans today," artist Emma answered without looking up. "Show and tell. I'm bringing my bunny." "Good choice. And if we see the butterfly again, I think I might name him Pancake." Mike smiled despite himself. Pancake. That's a happy day name. Can't argue with that. They left the house with backpacks, lunchbox, and morning sunshine painting the world gentle. Mike buckled Emma into the truck, tucking a stray braid behind her ear. "You got your spark?" he asked, an old phrase he'd used since she learned to speak, meaning her smile, her light, her courage. Emma tapped her chest twice. Right here. He kissed her forehead. Go blind the world with it. He dropped her at school, watching her run inside with the kind of joy adults spent decades trying to reclaim. Then he exhaled slowly and headed toward town. Sleep still clung to him, memories heavier than the air. He wasn't ready for the base call yet. Wasn't ready for the world expecting him to be whole. Coffee first. Something small and warm to hold. He stopped at Corner Brew, a little cafe tucked between a florist and a barber shop, local, quiet, familiar. Bells jingled as he pushed open the door. The smell of roasted beans and cinnamon sugar wrapped around him like comfort. He touched the ring without realizing it. He didn't see her until he'd already stepped to the counter. Officer Brooke Mason stood there, uniform, crisp hair, tucked tight coffee cup in her hand, and shock in her eyes. Time paused the way it does when grief and fate meet unexpectedly, when two lives touched by the same quiet ache stumble into each other again, softer this time. She blinked, composed, straightened. "Mr. Doyle," she said, tone polite but tinged with something unguarded, maybe remorse, maybe curiosity. "Officer Mason." Mike nodded, still half caught between surprise and memory of yesterday's sunlight and unfinished sentence. They both stepped aside awkwardly, as if unsure who had right of way in fate's doorway. "You go ahead," Brooke offered. "You were here first," Mike countered. A beat of silence. The barista looked back and forth, amused. Brooke gave a small, reluctant smile. "Truce, I'll order mine, you pretend I'm invisible." "Not possible," Mike said quietly before he could stop the words. Her eyes flickered, startled, affected. Then she looked away, clearing her throat. "Large, dark roast. No sugar." When she moved aside, Mike approached the counter. "Same," he murmured. Brooke blinked. "No sugar," he shrugged. "Some things are meant to be bitter." Her expression softened, almost involuntary. "Or honest," she offered gently. "Maybe both." A silence settled between them, not hostile, not strained, but fragile, like a thread stretched between two hearts that hadn't yet decided if they should reach or retreat. The barista called her name. Brooke took the cup and hesitated, not a flinch, but a thoughtful pause. She glanced at his ring again, then at his eyes. "About yesterday," she began. "You were doing your job. I said something I shouldn't have." Mike shook his head. "It was honest. That doesn't mean it wasn't careless." Her voice lowered. "I didn't know." "There's a lot people don't know," he murmured. "Doesn't make them wrong. Just human." Brooke looked at him as if trying to understand how a stranger could offer grace she didn't think she deserved. "Still." "I'm sorry." He nodded once. Apology accepted. Her shoulders eased, a small release, but one she felt. She turned to go and ran straight into Emma. Well, Emma ran into her tiny arms, wrapping around Brooke's legs like greeting an old friend. "Hi, police lady." Brooke froze, startled. "Oh, Emma, right?" "You remembered." Emma beamed. "Did you catch any bad guys today?" "No bad guys yet," Brooke said, voice warming. "Just coffee." Emma nodded sagely, as though this were a perfectly acceptable law enforcement strategy. "I came to say sorry," she continued, "because Daddy said I made you sad." Mike rubbed his neck helplessly. "Not exactly what I said." Brooke crouched to Emma's level. "You didn't make me sad. You reminded me of something important." Her voice wavered just a breath. "And that's a gift." Emma smiled like she'd been handed a medal. "Do you like pancakes?" she asked suddenly. Brooke blinked. Yes," Emma gasped dramatically. "This is destiny." Mike coughed, nearly laughing despite the emotion tangled in the air. "She has a butterfly named Pancake now." Brooke's lips curved a real smile this time, soft like sunlight easing into a room. "Ah, well, then I'm honored." Emma squeezed her hand, small warmth against cold duty. Daddy likes coffee 'cause it helps his heart wake up. Brooke's smile faded into something deeper. Does it work? Mike answered quietly. Still waking. Brooke held his gaze a beat longer than necessary, and in that shared silence lay parallel wounds, old battles, and the faint, impossible thought that healing might not be a solitary path. She rose. I should get to the station. Stay safe out there, Mike said. You too. She hesitated, then added, voice soft as prayer, and keep waking up. Then she left the bell above the door, jingling in her wake, a sound that felt suddenly significant, like a chapter turning. Mike watched her go, heart unsettled in a way that wasn't painful, just unfamiliar. Emma tugged his sleeve. She likes pancakes, she whispered, delighted. Seems so. And she looked at you like Mommy looked at you in pictures. Mike inhaled sharply, caught between a sting of grief and a flicker of something like hope. Emma. It's okay, she whispered, patting his hand with tiny certainty. Mommy says love doesn't get smaller, it just gets new rooms. He closed his eyes. Kneeling, he pulled her into his arms, not because he was broken, but because she kept building him back. We should get moving, he said quietly. Can we get pancakes? Absolutely, as they stepped into the morning coffee warm in his hand, and sunlight settling on the street like blessing. Mike felt the world shift, not loudly, not dramatically, but gently. Like a door he thought sealed forever had quietly unlocked from the other side. And though he didn't know it yet, that second encounter wasn't coincidence. It was the first crack of dawn after a long night. Late afternoon settled over the neighborhood, like a quilt of amber light and slow shadows. The world moved softly here. Lawnmowers had gone quiet. School buses were long past, and the air smelled faintly of cut grass and summer dust. A few wind chimes whispered from a porch nearby, gentle as prayer. Mike parked the truck in his driveway engine, sighing into stillness. Emma hopped out, backpack, bouncing braids, swinging like flags of innocence. She sprinted up the walkway toward the porch swing, her favorite place to pretend she could fly. The wood creaked under her small feet, rhythmic and happy. Mike lingered a moment by the truck, arms crossed, letting silence breathe around him. The second encounter had left a quiet tension in his chest, not discomfort, but possibility. That alone felt dangerous, like stepping too close to a door he wasn't sure he had permission to open. Before he could get lost in thought, a familiar voice called out from across the yard. Well, you look like a man carrying more than groceries in that mind of yours. Mary Bennett, 75, and sharp as the Texas horizon, stood leaning on her cane by the picket fence. Her silver hair was swept into a neat bun, and her floral apron bore a smudge of flour likely from another batch of biscuits she used as both hospitality and subtle emotional medicine. Mike managed a smile. Afternoon, Mary. She raised a brow, studying him like a historian studying a relic, with stories simmering beneath the surface. You walked in like someone who saw yesterday standing in front of tomorrow. He blinked. Mary had a way of condensing complex truths into poetic ambush. Just a long day, he said. She tisked. Son, long days wear on the bones. Heavy hearts wear on the soul. Yours looks more soul-tired. Before he could reply, Emma ran over and hugged Mary's waist. Mary stroked her hair gently. Well, hello, Angel. Mary cooed. You keeping this old world bright. Emma nodded seriously. I tried to help Daddy's heart wake up, Mary chuckled. Good girl. Men like him need reminding. Mike shook his head fondly. You two conspiring against me again? Absolutely, Mary replied. Someone has to save you from yourself. They moved to the porch, Mary settling slowly onto the swing, Emma climbing beside her. Mike leaned against the railing arms, folded loosely sunlight, warming his olive-green shirt. A gentle breeze danced through the yard, turning the moment into something sacred in its simplicity. Mary rocked the swing gently, wood softly, creaking. "You know I lost my Henry 53 years ago this fall." Mike looked toward her, expression softening. He was Air Force. Good man. Quiet man. Hid pain like it was classified clearance. Her eyes glimmered with memory and a love time never erased. Grief doesn't vanish, dear. It simply learns to sit beside joy without needing to take all the space. Mike listened still as stone. "I see the way you hold that ring," she continued, eyes kind, not prying. "Like you're afraid letting go dishonors her." He swallowed. "Some things don't feel like they should fade." "They don't," Mary replied, voice warm as a hymn. "Love doesn't fade. It expands. Henry didn't stop being my first chapter just because life kept printing pages." Emma laid her head on Mary's shoulder, comfort drawn as naturally as breath. Mike's gaze softened, heart tethered between old vows and a horizon he hadn't expected. And sometimes Mary added, God or fate, whichever you lean on, sends someone not to replace, but to remind. To say, you're still here. You still have living to do. Mike looked away, jaw tightening. The memory of Brooke at the cafe flickered her guarded eyes. The apology she struggled to speak, the way she softened at Emma's innocence. "I don't know if I'm built for starting again," he murmured. Mary's voice gentled. "Starting again isn't the test, Michael. Staying closed when life knocks, that's the real battle." He breathed slowly, absorbing the weight and grace of her words. Healing never came loud. It came like this in quiet kitchens, on porch swings, in the voice of a wise old neighbor who saw people the way others read scripture. Emma looked up wide-eyed. "Miss Mary, yes, angel. Did heaven send you to help my daddy?" Mary smiled, eyes crinkling. "Oh, sweetheart, angels don't always have wings." Sometimes she winked at Mike. "We just have good timing and a smart mouth." Mike laughed, soft but genuine, the kind that felt like a window opening in a long-closed room. Then his phone buzzed. He checked the screen. Daniel Brooks. Old friend, former colleague. One of the few who remembered the man Mike used to be, steady hands on aircraft wings, nights spent on base, under floodlights, and stars, laughter fought for, after missions, sorrow shared like brotherhood. He answered. Daniel A. A familiar, gritty voice responded. "Hey, man, we got seasonal rotation coming up. Winter maintenance window. Base could use you part-time flexible hours. Thought I'd call before someone's genius recruits you to mow lawns instead." Mike smirked. "Still charming. Always. So you thinking about coming back?" And Mike hesitated, eyes drifting to Emma, to the cabin memory, to Martha's letter, to Brooke's soft, startled eyes at the cafe. "I'll think about it." Daniel exhaled, knowing that was the closest thing to commitment Mike had given the world in years. "That's all I ask. Doors open." And Doyle. "You belong around engines. You always have." Call ended. Silence settled again. Mary watched him gently. "Sounds like life is knocking in more places than one." Emma nudged him. "Daddy, if life knocks, we open the door." "You told me that." He smiled faintly. "I didn't I?" Mary patted his hand. "Don't rush. Just don't hide." The sun dipped lower, painting everything gold. Fireflies stirred in the grass as evening approached, tiny sparks floating up like hope, learning to breathe again. Mike gathered Emma in his arms, holding her close. Mary studied him with a knowing tenderness. "When you're ready," she whispered, "the world will meet you." And maybe, she added softly, someone already has. Mike's eyes drifted to the street, to where a police cruiser had once sat beneath sunset and unspoken words. Some hearts awaken slowly, but they awaken all the same. Saturday morning arrived with gentle warmth, the kind that drifted through curtains like a quiet blessing. The Doyle house stirred slowly. No alarms, no rush, just the sweet hum of an ordinary day. Mike stood at the stove, cooking scrambled eggs, while Emma carefully arranged blueberries into the shape of a smiley face on her plate. She hummed between bites, swinging her legs under the table. "You're happy today," Mike observed. Emma nodded confidently. "Feels like sunshine day." "And what's a sunshine day?" "It's the kind of day where someone might get a new friend," she said, matter of fact. Mike raised an eyebrow. "Oh yeah, who's that someone?" "You," she replied with an innocence that disarmed and disquieted him at once. Before he could respond, his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He hesitated, then answered. Mr. Doyle. He recognized the voice instantly. "Brooke Mason." "This is Officer Mason." She clarified her tone, oddly formal, as if rehearsed. I hope this isn't inappropriate. I got your number from the ticket report. I wanted to return your license, actually. And also, if you'd allow it, I'd like to apologize properly. Over coffee." Mike blinked. Silence stretched as he absorbed it. Coffee. With her. Not flirtation, he could hear the restraint in her voice. This was something quieter. Two wounded souls seeking understanding more than company. "Sure," he said softly. "There's a place on Maple and 5th. Noon, I know it," she replied quickly, too quickly. "Noon is perfect." Emma watched him with a knowing grin, chin propped in her tiny palms. "Is it the police lady?" He sighed. "Finish your blueberries." The cafe smelled of fresh pastry and pumpkin spice when Mike arrived. He entered quietly, wearing his dependable work boots and faded green jacket, the same one Martha once told him made him look like the hero in an old movie he never believed he was. Brooke was already there. Civilian clothes today, jeans, a soft cream sweater, hair in a loose ponytail. Without the uniform, she looked less guarded, yet somehow more real. Vulnerable in a way strength sometimes demands. She stood when he approached. "Hi." "Hi." They sat. A brief, awkward silence followed, not tense, just uncertain, like two people stepping out onto thin ice, hoping it might hold. "I brought this," Brooke said, sliding his driver's license across the table. "I realized I walked away with it. Rookie mistake." He smiled faintly. "Happens to the best. Or the distracted." Mike shook his head. "You were doing your job." Brooke looked down, tracing the rim of her mug. "About that day. I don't know what came over me. When I saw the ring and your little girl." She exhaled slowly. "It hit something. You don't owe me an explanation." "Maybe not," she said quietly, "but I owe myself one." Mike waited, not pushing, simply present, a gentle strength. Brooke's voice softened. 2 years ago there was a fire. Apartment complex. I was first on scene. There was a man inside, a veteran, actually. She swallowed. I didn't hesitate. I went in, pulled him and his kid out. Mike's eyes warmed with the solemn respect of someone who understood sacrifice. But in the process, I got hit with debris, she continued. Shoulder injury. Recovery was long. Her jaw tightened. My fiancé couldn't handle it. Said the job would always come first. Packed his things 3 weeks after I came home from the hospital. "That wasn't your fault," Mike said. Tone low, steady. She gave a sad smile. "Pain always feels like our fault, before time teaches otherwise." He nodded. "Yeah." Brooke looked up, meeting his eyes, searching, hesitant, hopeful. "When I saw your ring, I thought, he still carries love. And then I heard your daughter." Emotion tightened her voice. I said something careless. But it came from envy, from wishing I'd been worth staying for. Mike leaned forward, elbows resting on his knees. You were. His leaving says something about him, not you. Her lips trembled just slightly, a crack in armor. Not weakness, just truth rising. What about you? She asked gently. Your wife. She passed. Mike nodded. Cancer. 3 years ago. Brooke's eyes softened with quiet empathy. I'm sorry. He glanced at his ring's silver catching light, like memory refusing to dull. We knew it was coming. Had time to say goodbye. Doesn't make it easier, just clearer. What do you mean grief isn't losing someone? He said softly. It's learning to carry love alone. Brooke swallowed hard. That's beautiful. It's survival. Silence wrapped around them, not empty but sacred. A soft space where hurt recognized hurt and chose gentleness instead of retreat. Can I ask something? Brooke ventured. Sure. When your wife got sick, did she ever worry you'd be alone? He exhaled. Every day. She used to say, promise me you won't lock the door behind me. I told her I didn't know how not to. She said, then start by opening a window. Brooke's eyes shimmered. Sounds like she was remarkable. She was light disguised as a person. A beat. And you? He asked softly. How do you carry your hurt? Brooke looked down, voice barely above a whisper. By pretending I don't. That works, Mike said gently until it doesn't. Their eyes met, and in that shared gaze something shifted. Nothing romantic, yet no rush, no spark trying to steal, just two tired souls, recognizing the other's fight. Human connection, the quiet kind, born clean and careful. A waitress walked by, leaving 2 warm muffins. On the house, she said, with a wink. You two look like you needed something sweet. They laughed quietly, the kind of laugh that loosens knots you didn't know you tied. Brooke wiped a crumb gently with her thumb. Do you believe in second chances, Mike? He looked out the window as sunlight cut across the table like blessing. I believe in kindness, he said. And I believe life doesn't waste it. Brooke nodded. I'd like to be braver again. You already are, he replied softly. When they stood to leave, she hesitated. Can I walk you to your truck? He smiled. I walked here. A pause. Then they both laughed at the absurd innocence of it. She touched his arm, brief and respectful, like asking the universe for permission. Thank you for today, she whispered. Thank you for trusting me with it. As they stepped outside, the breeze carried the scent of blooming magnolia sweet, hopeful alive. They didn't reach for each other, didn't rush fate. They simply stood for a moment in the quiet grace of shared courage. Sometimes healing doesn't announce itself. Sometimes it sits across a table wrapped in coffee steam and confession waiting to be believed in again. And sometimes all it takes is one honest conversation to remind 2 hearts that broken is not the same as finished. The weather changed without warning, as Texas skies often do, rolling in with a low growl that shook tree branches and rattled loose porch wind chimes. By late evening, clouds had swallowed the sun whole and cast the world in restless twilight. Thunder rumbled like old grief clearing its throat. Inside the Doyle home, warm light glowed from the kitchen window, while rain began its slow drumbeat on the roof. Emma sat at the table, crayons scattered tongue, poking slightly out in concentration as she drew a picture labeled, My Family. 3 stick figures again, one tall, one small, and one with a tiny star drawn above the head. Mike watched her from the sink, drying dishes. Who's the star? Emma looked up. Mommy. She watches from the sky. Mike swallowed. That she does. Outside, thunder cracked sharp. Emma flinched. Mike wiped his hands and reached for her, ruffling her hair gently. It's just noise, Peanut. Sky's stretching. Emma giggled, reassured. Daddy. Yeah, do you think butterflies go to sleep in storms? He crouched beside her. Butterflies are brave. They find shelter and wait for the world to be calm again. She nodded thoughtfully. We are kind of like butterflies too, right? Mike's breath caught. We are, he whispered. God, she saved him every single day. A sudden crash outside sliced through the quiet, a sharp metallic thud, followed by the sickly crunch of plastic. Mike's body went instinctively rigid reflexes, honed from years of responding first and questioning later. He moved to the window. The neighbor's porch light flickered, illuminating a dark sedan bump-parked messily near his truck. Someone had clipped it in the storm. Before Mike could step outside, red and blue flashed down the street fast but steady. A cruiser rolled in, wipers struggling against the thickening rain. Emma perked up. It's the police lady. Mike's pulse kicked, though he tried to ignore the strange mix of relief and nerves tightening his chest. The cruiser door opened. Brooke Mason, rain jacket over her uniform, stepped into the storm, confident, alert, scanning as lightning flashed behind her, like a silent battlefield flare. She moved quickly, assessing the scene, like instinct, not effort. Mike opened the door. The wind greeted him with cold rain whipping his shirt and hair as he stepped onto the porch. Brooke looked up. For a moment, brief as the lightning's flicker, her eyes softened in recognition. Then duty steadied her expression again. Evening, Mike. Her voice carried through the rain, low but resolute. Got a call about damage on this street. Looks like your truck, Mike nodded. Someone clipped it. Didn't see who. Storm nights bring out the reckless, she murmured. Then quieter. You two, okay. We're good. As if on cue, Emma darted to the doorway, bundling herself in a blanket like a tiny burrito. Hi, Officer Brooke. Brooke's mouth tugged into a helpless smile. Hi, sweetheart. Staying warm, Emma nodded seriously. Storms sound grumpy. But Daddy says it's just sky stretching. Brooke chuckled softly. Smart man. Another thunderclap rolled across the neighborhood. Emma flinched just enough for Brooke to notice. Her eyes flickered, protective instinct rising. You mind if I step in for a minute? Storm's making radio reception spotty. Mike gestured her in. Of course. Rainwater glistened on Brooke's jacket as she stepped onto the warm wood floors, shaking off droplets. She stood a moment, breathing in the soft scent of home cinnamon from Emma's crayons and the faint lavender Martha once loved. Emma tugged her hand and pointed proudly at the drawing on the table. This is my family. Brooke leaned in. 3 figures. One with a star. Her breath caught. It's beautiful, she whispered. That one's Mommy, Emma explained, tapping the star. She lives in the sky now. Brooke's throat tightened. She must be so proud of you. Emma beamed, then scampered off in search of cookies, her cure for storm nights. Mike handed Brooke a towel. She hesitated before accepting police training, warring with the strange gentleness of this kitchen. Thanks. A crack of thunder shook the house again. Emma squealed from the pantry. Daddy Mike's reaction was instinctive. He moved toward her protective calm, but Brooke moved too, step matching his. Both reached the pantry door at the same time. Emma rushed out and ran straight into Mike's arms. He lifted her, holding her against his chest. Brooke stepped back, heart squeezing at the sight. Not longing, but something humbler. Reverence, maybe. For a bond not even storms could shake. You okay, Mike? Murmured, brushing a tear off Emma's cheek. She nodded, gripping his shirt. Just loud. Storm can't hurt us here. You're safe. Brooke watched, and something inside her settled like a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. Emma peeked at Brooke. Storms scare you too. Brooke squatted to Emma's height. Sometimes they used to, she admitted. But then I learned storms end. Good things come after. Emma considered this, then solemnly handed Brooke a stuffed toy, a tiny worn bear. Here. He makes bad noises less loud. Brooke swallowed. That's a brave bear. He has one eye, but he sees more, Emma whispered, conspiratorial. Mike chuckled. She comes up with her own wisdom. Looks like she inherited some, Brooke said softly, glancing at Mike, a warmth there, neither of them named. Rain hammered harder outside. Mike moved toward the stove. You want tea? I make a mean peppermint, helps with long days and loud skies. Brooke hesitated. Duty weighed on her, visible in the tension at her shoulders. But something gentler won out. She nodded. The kettle hummed. Steam filled the air. Emma curled up with her blanket on the couch, thumb pressed to the bear's stitching like a prayer. Brooke leaned on the counter, watching Mike with quiet respect. She trusts easily, she murmured. Mike stirred honey into 2 mugs. Kids are born believing the world's kind. My job's just not to break that. Brooke's gaze softened. You're doing good. You too, he replied. Storms don't stop you. She smiled, tired, honest. Storms are just weather. Duty's the compass. He handed her a mug. Their fingers brushed, brief electric quickly dismissed with polite restraint. But the warmth lingered. Not romantic, yet not allowed to be, but human. Present. Real. Brooke sipped. This is good. Old habit, Mike said, leaning against the counter opposite her. I used to make tea for hospital nights. Her eyes softened. You stayed every night, didn't you? Every breath. Silence held them soft, respectful. Not mourning. Honoring. A flash of lightning lit the windows white. Brooke instinctively glanced toward Emma, protective reflex. Mike noticed. You don't have to stay, he said gently. I know. She stared into her tea. Sometimes storms are easier when you're not alone. Mike nodded. Sometimes life too. Their eyes met. Not longing. Not invitation. Just understanding. 2 souls standing in the doorway of healing, not rushing to cross, but not turning away. The storm thundered on. Yet inside, peace settled like warm lamplight around them. Outside, rain worked its cleansing hymn against earth and roof. Inside, 3 hearts, one small one, healing one, learning to hope again, sat quietly together. And sometimes a storm isn't there to frighten you. Sometimes it arrives to show you who stands with you while it passes. Morning rose clear after the storm, the sky scrubbed clean and bright, as if the world had taken a long, honest breath. The air smelled of wet earth and pine, and sunlight settled on the Doyle home like gentle benediction. Inside, quiet lived in the walls, not lonely. Quiet, just a stillness that comes after emotional weather has passed. Emma sat cross-legged on the living room carpet, trying to braid her stuffed bear's single thread of remaining fur, as if making it fancy for church. She hummed lightly, unaware that her father, only a room away, carried a weight in his chest that felt older than he was. Mike stood at the bathroom mirror, toothbrush, idle in hand, staring at his reflection. A man carved by time and duty stared back, jaw rough with stubble eyes ringed with the remnants of a night where sleep arrived in shallow waves. But it wasn't fatigue that held his attention. It was the ring. Silver. Worn. Familiar as breath. He lifted his hand slightly, fingers brushing the band. It caught the bathroom light, scattering it like a quiet memory trying to be seen. He closed his eyes. He had not taken the ring off since the day Martha slipped it onto his finger. Not through deployments, not through sleepless hospital months, not through grief's darkest hours. His thumb pressed against the metal. It thudded in his chest, a heartbeat that wasn't just his. A vow a life shared, a goodbye whispered too soon. He whispered almost without breath. What am I supposed to do now? Not a question to God nor to himself. It was a question to time, a plea to the universe to make sense of second chances when he hadn't even learned to forgive life for taking the first. Emma peeked into the doorway blanket dragging behind her. Daddy, his eyes opened. He forced a smile. Hey, Peanut. You look like when you think real hard, she said, rubbing sleep from her eyes. Mike knelt, scooping her into his arms, just remembering good things. She pressed her small palm against his cheek, warm, anchoring him back into this moment. Mommy likes when you remember. He swallowed. Yeah, she would. And she likes when you smile, too. He kissed her forehead. Then better practice. They shared breakfast quietly, cereal for Emma, strong coffee for Mike. Later, while Emma built a Lego garden for her one-eyed stuffed bear, Mike did something he hadn't done in a long time. He walked to the wooden cabinet in the corner of his room. It was Martha's. He opened the drawer. Inside lay keepsakes, her locket of wedding photo hospital bracelets he hadn't been able to throw away. Pressed wildflowers from hikes they once took laughter frozen in time. And a small wooden box with brass edges. His fingers trembled as he lifted the lid. The letter sat inside, folded carefully, edges worn from the times he'd read it, when grief felt too heavy and hope too far. My Michael love never ends. It changes shape, like sunlight finding new windows. When you feel ready, not rushed, not forced, let the world touch you again. Let love find you gently. And when it does, don't think of it as replacing me. Think of it as proof that I made you braver than loss. Martha. His breath broke. A sound escaped him, something between relief and ache. He pressed the letter to his forehead, as though grounding himself in memory, in gratitude, in pain that was no longer destructive but sacred. He whispered into the wood-scented quiet. I love you. That hasn't stopped. A tear slid not heavy with despair, but full like warm rain cleansing old stone. He reached for the ring. His hand shook. He couldn't force it. He tried to pull it over. The knuckle stopped halfway chest tight, heart racing like fingers clinging to the edge of a cliff. The ring wouldn't move, or rather, he wouldn't let it. He exhaled sharply, gripping the edge of the cabinet like gravity had doubled. He didn't want to erase Martha. He wanted to honor her. But grief, even in its gentlest form, can feel like betrayal when joy tries to slip in beside it. He let go, rested his forehead against his hand, breathed. Then he heard it. Paper rustling. Emma had wandered into the room, quietly drawn by instinct. Only children and angels share. Her small hand reached into the drawer, picking up the letter with tender curiosity. Daddy, his heart lunged. Careful, sweetheart. Emma unfolded it clumsily, eyes dragging across handwriting she couldn't fully read yet, but somehow understood anyway. Is this from Mommy? She whispered. Mike nodded through it thick. Yes. Emma didn't read the words aloud, but she touched one sentence with her finger, slowly, reverently, as though tracing her mother's voice. Let the world touch you again. Then she looked at him, and for a moment, she wasn't 6. She was something timeless. Pure. Wise. Heaven-touched. Mommy says you can be happy again, she whispered. She told me in my dream. His chest caved, not breaking, but expanding under the pressure of love, too big for one heart. He sat on the floor, pulling Emma into his arms, holding her like she was the last safe truth in the world. She pressed her head into his shoulder arms around his neck, small, sure, unshakable. It doesn't mean I stop loving Mommy, he murmured, voice cracking. Emma shook her head. Love doesn't run out. It just gets new rooms. He closed his eyes. Those words from a child, but somehow also from Martha. From God, from love itself, pierced softly as healing sometimes does. He drew a long breath. Then another. And this time, when he lifted his hand to the ring, he didn't try to take it off. He just held it. Not as a weight, as a blessing, a memory, a promise kept, and maybe someday a promise allowed to evolve. He kissed Emma's hair. Thank you, Peanut. For what? For reminding me that love doesn't leave. She smiled sleepily. Mommy helps. Yeah, he whispered. She always did. Outside, the world was quiet. Inside, a door cracked open, not torn, not forced, just gently shifting on old hinges. Letting light in. Letting breath out. Letting love become something living again. Sunday morning arrived soft and peach-colored, the kind of day where light felt tender, not bright. Where silence wasn't emptiness, but comfort left behind, like a blanket still warm from sleep. Emma woke early, a bundle of restless joy, and bounced onto Mike's bed with the enthusiasm only 6-year-olds and angels possess. Daddy Park Day. Mike rubbed his eyes, smiling into the pillow. Park Day. Can we feed ducks and pick flowers? And maybe run into someone. Mike raised a brow. Anyone in particular? Emma clasped her hands behind her back, all innocence. Just life. He chuckled. Sneaky. Emma scrambled off the bed to pick out her park dress, a yellow sundress decorated with daisies that she believed made her shine like sunshine itself. By late morning, the three of them, Mike, Emma, and a picnic basket, stepped into Oak Ridge Park, where sunlight filtered through towering oaks. Children's laughter mingled with bird songs, and breeze carried hints of barbecue earth and weekend rest. At the duck pond, Emma giggled as ducks waddled toward her handful of breadcrumbs as if invited to fancy brunch. Mike watched her hands and pockets, heart full and sore at the same time. He could almost imagine Martha beside him, a gentle presence in memory, not pain. It didn't feel like betrayal anymore. It felt like gratitude. He felt a quiet shift inside, subtle as petals turning toward sun. He didn't hear Brooke approach, only noticed when Emma squealed, "Officer Brooke." Brooke stood a few steps away, hands in jeans, pockets, hair loose around her shoulders. Sunday softness replacing weekday command. She offered a small wave, hesitant, hopeful. "I didn't plan to intrude," she said. "I just come here sometimes. It's quiet." Mike held her gaze, warmth tugging at his chest. "You're not intruding." Emma grabbed Brooke's hand without asking permission, pulling her toward the ducks. Brooke blinked, surprised by the tiny grip of trust, then laughed soft and unsure, as if remembering how to laugh freely again. Mike watched them. Saw Brooke kneel to Emma's height, gentle and attentive. Saw Emma chat about butterflies and bear brigades and how ducks probably have ticklish feet. Brooke listened like it mattered. Some people spoke to children, others saw them. That difference stirred something deep inside Mike. Admiration may be something more. He joined them by the water's edge. The three stood there, a quiet picture, framed by sun-lit ripples and rustling branches. Emma tugged Brooke's hand. "Come here. I want to show you the wishing bench." She pulled Brooke toward a weathered wooden bench beneath an ancient oak. Mike followed slowly, feeling like he was watching life build something without asking him first, and he didn't mind. Brooke sat beside Emma. Mike settled on the other side. A breeze passed through, carrying the faint scent of wildflowers and cut grass. Emma hopped down. "I'm gonna go look for ladybugs. Stay where we can see you," Mike reminded. Emma twirled dramatically. "I will only go as far as safe love can travel," Brooke blinked. "She says things like that a lot, doesn't she?" Mike nodded. "She's got an old soul, or a direct line to heaven. I haven't decided." Brooke's smile softened, but it held sorrow too. "She's lucky to have a father who listens." Mike's gaze dropped to his hands. "I don't always get it right. No one does." Silence gentle like a pause between heartbeats. Then Brooke confessed quietly, "I was afraid to come today." Mike looked up. "Why? Because I haven't known peace in a long time. And I felt it with you two the other night. That scared me." Mike's breath caught not from surprise but resonance. Peace can be loud when you're used to noise. Her eyes flicked to his ring. I don't want to step into something sacred by mistake. You aren't. And I don't want to hurt you. Or her. You're not, she exhaled shakily. I don't know how to be enough for someone who loved that deeply. Mike stared out at the pond, ducks gliding like small miracles on water. My wife didn't love me, so I'd stop living after her, he said softly. She loved me so life would feel worth coming back to. Brooke's eyes shimmered, holding back tears she rarely let fall. Emma returned, clutching a tiny yellow flower. She placed it gently in Brooke's palm. This one's for you, Emma whispered. It looks like sunshine found you. Brooke stared at the flower, a fragile gift, heavy with meaning. Her throat tightened. Thank you, sweetheart. Emma grinned, then ran off again to chase the breeze. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full of breath of possibility of cautious becoming. Brooke's fingers toyed with the flower stem. I don't know what this is for us. Mike didn't look away. We don't need to name it. And if it's just friendship, friendship's how the best things begin. And if it's more, someday, then someday, will tell us. For a moment, she simply looked at him, searching, memorizing, believing. A gust lifted a lock of hair across her face. Mike reached out slowly, gently, and brushed it back behind her ear. His fingers didn't linger. They didn't need to. Brooke's breath caught a small, involuntary sound, more gratitude than surprise. Their hands rested on the bench between them. Quiet. Close. Unrushed. Then, almost like leaves brushing in the breeze, Brooke's fingers slid into his tentative, but sure. Mike didn't pull away. He didn't chase the moment. He received it. Their hands intertwined, light, gentle, as though the world might shatter if they rushed. It wasn't romance. It was reverence. Emma looked back from the field, smile wide as a sunrise. Daddy's holding hands, she squealed. Brooke flushed, laughing through sudden embarrassed warmth. Mike shook his head, chuckling the sound unpracticed, but warming the air between them. You okay? He asked quietly. Brooke squeezed his hand once. I think. I'm remembering how to breathe, and I'm remembering how to let light in again. They sat like that, three figures in a Sunday park, sunlight touching them, like blessing grief and hope, learning to coexist in the same breath. Sometimes love doesn't arrive with thunder. Sometimes it arrives like this, soft as a hand, finding yours gentle as a child's, laughter steady as sunlight after rain. A walk toward tomorrow, one step at a time. Monday dawned calm, the kind of morning that looked harmless. Blue sky, soft breeze, yet carried a tension beneath the surface, like a still lake hiding deep currents. Mike sipped coffee on the porch, Emma still asleep inside her tiny snores, drifting faintly from her room. He rubbed a thumb over his wedding ring, not out of torment, now, but memory, gratitude. A vow honored and evolving. His phone buzzed. Daniel Brooks again. Mike answered. You think about the bass job, Daniel asked, voice balancing, casual and concerned. We miss your hands on those engines, I'm thinking, Mike replied. You say that like it hurts. Maybe it does. Daniel exhaled. Mike, grace doesn't dishonor the dead. It honors the living. Mike smiled faintly. You quoting scripture to me? Old hanger wisdom, Daniel chuckled. Same difference. Before Mike could answer, footsteps approached. He looked up. Brooke stood at the foot of his driveway. Not in uniform today. Not casual either. Civilian clothes chosen carefully crisp, navy blouse, duty-polished shoes. Posture straight, but something weary hung behind her eyes. Gotta go, Mike muttered. Call you later. He hung up. Morning, Brooke said softly. You okay? Mike asked immediately. She hesitated, then shook her head once not defeated, just honest. There's been a review opened, she admitted. Internal affairs. Someone filed a question about my conduct on that traffic stop. Mike stiffened. Because of me, a claim of personal involvement. Bias. Unprofessional interaction. Her voice stayed steady, but regret flickered under the surface. I didn't say anything that violates use of authority, but apparently I engaged emotionally with a civilian. Mike's jaw flexed. Someone saw us, possibly. Or maybe they just heard tone in my report. My chief wants transparency. She exhaled. They think I might have been partial. Were you? She met his eyes. I was human. Silence stayed between them, not cold, but heavy with truth. And I'm not sorry for that, she continued. But I won't let it harm my badge. Her voice wavered, not from fear, but from pride, and the fear of falling short of it. The uniform is the one thing no one ever walked away from me for. Mike stepped closer, voice low. I don't want to be the reason you lose anything. You're not, she whispered. You're the reason I remembered there's life outside duty. That's not a mistake, that's mercy. She swallowed. But for now we need some space in public, just until this clears. Mike nodded slowly, absorbing the weight. I get it. And I don't want you to think this means I'm backing away. Her voice softened. I'm holding the line, carefully, until I can walk across it clean. Mike looked toward the house where Emma slept. Whatever this is, he said quietly, I don't want it to hurt you. Or her. If distance protects, that I'll honor it. Brooke's eyes glimmered, not from sadness, but from respect. You always go toward the right thing, don't you? He shook his head. No. But I try to. She smiled, small but real. Trying is more honest than perfection. A car slowed on the street, a neighbor's curious glance. Brooke noticed, straightened even further. Duty armor sliding back into place. She stepped back. I should go before someone assumes something again. Just before she turned, Emma's sleepy voice called from the doorway. Officer Brooke froze, spine softening instantly. Emma patted out hair a morning mess, clutching her one-eyed bear. She walked straight to Brooke, fearless, trusting, certain, and held up a crayon drawing. 3 figures again. Daddy. Emma. And Brooke drawn with the little flower Emma had given her in the park. I made sunshine for you, Emma whispered. Brooke's breath hitched like a tear chose to stay inside. She crouched. That's beautiful. It's for when days feel heavy, Emma said. Daddy says, heavy days just need light. Mike blinked, surprised emotion tightening his chest. Words he'd spoken in grief now returned as comfort in a child's voice. Brooke took the drawing as if it were fragile glass. Thank you, sweetheart. I'll keep it safe. Emma leaned in, whispering with conspiratorial wisdom. Only children and saints possess. You can borrow Daddy's heart to carry heavy things. It's really strong. Brooke closed her eyes. Swallowed emotion opened them again. Your daddy has one of the strongest hearts I've ever seen. Emma smiled proudly. I know. Brooke rose. I'll check in soon. Just be patient with me. Mike nodded. I'm not going anywhere. Before leaving, she looked at him with raw sincerity. I don't want distance. I just need integrity. And you'll have both, he said simply. She walked away, spine straight, chin lifted, eyes shining with a quiet war inside her. Strength, vulnerability, honor, hope. Mike watched until she turned the corner. Emma slipped her hand into his tiny fingers, curling trust into his palm like a prayer. You're not sad, right, Daddy? He exhaled slowly. No, honey. Just thinking. Emma squeezed his hand. Thinking doesn't make love go away. He looked down. No. It doesn't. Emma held up her bear. Bear says sometimes love needs to wait in line so rules don't get confused. Mike smiled, choked warm, breaking and healing at the same time. Bear's got wisdom. Emma nodded sagely. He's old. Mike swept her up, holding her close. She wrapped her arms around his neck, small, fierce loyalty. Life wasn't simple. Pain didn't vanish when hope arrived. But hope was here. Slow, gentle earned, and for the first time Mike didn't fear breaking again. He feared not trying. Sometimes faith isn't belief without proof. Sometimes faith is choosing to hold on when the world asks you to wait. And love, real love, doesn't rush doors open. It knocks, it waits, it returns when the light's on. And even under pressure, it keeps its promise quietly. We are worth the time it takes. The cabin sat at the edge of pine woods, where wind whispered through tall needles like an old hymnal, and the earth still smelled of cedar and rain. It wasn't finished, not even close. Beams exposed porch, half-built roof, papered, but not shingled. A place paused in time, waiting for hands and hearts to return to it. Just like him. Mike parked the truck on gravel tires, crunching sunlight filtering through branches above. Emma hopped out wearing her favorite flannel shirt, two big sleeves rolled, looking like she'd borrowed courage from her father's wardrobe. "Daddy," she whispered dramatically. "We're in the wilderness." He grinned. 2 miles from town isn't wilderness. Emma widened her eyes. There are trees. That's wilderness. Hard to argue with 6-year-old philosophy. Before he could respond, another car pulled up behind them. Brooke stepped out, simple jeans boots and a soft burgundy sweater that made her look like autumn had found a human form. Her hair fell naturally, not tied back for duty. For once, she looked like someone off duty from the world. Emma sprinted toward her, throwing herself into Brooke's arms without hesitation. Brooke caught her laughing softly. "Well, hello, brave explorer. We're wilderness people today," Emma announced proudly. Brooke lifted her gaze to Mike. "That's so." "It is," he answered, voice warm. "You up for some manual labor?" She smiled, not polished, not guarded, a real small smile that felt like dawn breaking. "If you promise not to laugh at my hammering skills." "No promises." They walked up to the cabin together, Emma skipping ahead, humming some made-up song about trees that whisper secrets. Brooke paused at the steps. "You built this." "Started years ago," Mike replied. "Before hospital visits, before life got complicated." Brooke's gaze softened as she ran her fingertips along the wood grain. "It feels peaceful. It was supposed to be a family getaway," Mike said quietly. "For weekends, for memories. And now." He looked around at the beams waiting for purpose, the air waiting for laughter, the land waiting for footsteps to claim it again. Now, it's a place to rebuild. Brooke nodded, understanding deeper than words could stretch. They spent the next few hours sanding boards, tightening bolts, clearing leaves off the porch, taking breaks to sip lemonade. Emma insisted on calling construction juice. Birds chirped, wood chips flew, laughter rose in light moments. In quiet ones, their breaths matched the rhythm of hammers and wind. No rushing, no forcing. Just labor and presence. 2 souls building the same space without having to name what they were building between them. Emma gathered pine cones and declared them forest treasures. She placed them in a line along the porch like soldiers at attention. At one point she stopped, looked up at the sky, and smiled to herself, as if she felt someone watching with pride from above. Sometimes children carry more heaven than earth. Late afternoon arrived golden and still. A hush fell as the sun dipped lower, bathing the cabin in honey-colored light. Emma sat nearby, drawing with sticks in the dirt, narrating a grand adventure where Daddy Officer Brooke and Bear fight a dragon made of sadness and win. Brooke leaned against a beam, wiping sawdust from her fingers. Mike stood beside her, hands on his hips, staring at the half-repaired porch like it was the most beautiful thing he'd seen in years. He exhaled. Feels good to fix something again. Brooke swallowed. Maybe you weren't broken. Maybe you were just waiting. Mike looked at her, a steady, quiet look with depth behind it. Waiting for what? She hesitated, then softly. For the world to be gentle enough to come back to. He didn't reply. He didn't need to. His eyes said he understood because she had waited too. Their silence wasn't empty. It was full of breaths that matched of hearts, learning a synchronized rhythm of grief, making space for warmth without guilt. Emma skipped to them, cheeks rosy. Daddy Officer Brooke, you both look like movie people just thinking. Brooke laughed softly, brushing a leaf from Emma's hair. We're thinking about brave things. Emma nodded like she already knew. Children often see what adults deny. Then Emma bounced away toward the truck for snacks, leaving them alone. Mike rested a hand on the unfinished railing, took a breath. And then, slowly, reverently, he reached for his ring. Brooke froze, not in anticipation but in respect. She didn't move, didn't speak, didn't reach toward him or away. She just existed there, steady present, letting him have the space to decide his future without pressure or expectation. He didn't yank the ring. He touched it gently, fingers trembling not from doubt, but from love that still lived and refused to be discarded. He closed his eyes, whispered, barely audible but full of truth. Martha, thank you. Then with deliberate grace he slid the ring off, not flung, not hidden. Placed carefully into a small wooden box on the porch, beside a folded letter. Beside memory, not instead of it. Brooke's breath hitched, not from victory, but reverence, the honor of witnessing a heart open without demanding it do so. Mike looked up at her. I'll always love her, he whispered. Brooke nodded, tears shining without falling. I would worry if you didn't. And I don't want anyone to replace her. I wouldn't try. His next words came like a prayer, fragile and brave. But I think I'm ready to walk with someone again. If they want to walk slowly, carefully. Her voice broke on a whisper. I only know how to walk slow now. Wind brushed pine branches like applause from the sky. Emma looked toward them, sensing magic without understanding its shape. She clapped, delighted by the breeze. Mike lifted a hand, hesitated, then reached gently for Brooke's face, fingers brushing her cheek, verent and unsure. She leaned into his touch, not claiming, not taking, just meeting grace with grace. I don't want to replace her, she whispered. I just want to make space beside what she left. To walk forward with you, not stand where she stood. Mike's eyes softened, emotion thick. That's all I could ever ask. They stepped closer, slow as sunrise foreheads almost touching breath, mingling hearts, learning the courage to be seen again. And when their lips met, it wasn't passion first. It was gratitude. A kiss not of desire, but of permission. Permission to live. Permission to remember, and yet move forward. Permission to love without erasing love. Emma squealed behind them, clapping like the earth had grown wings. Brooke broke the kiss and whispered, smiling through tears, I'm not here to take her place. Mike whispered back, voice warm and steady, and you're here because I still deserve to love and be loved. Trees swayed gently. Sunlight rested soft on them, and the world for one suspended moment felt right again. Even heaven perhaps approved. Winter sunlight stretched long and pale across the Doyle driveway, glinting off frost that clung to the grass like tiny diamonds. The air held that crisp December stillness, quiet yet full, like the world itself was holding its breath in gentle wonder. The season had turned slowly, but hearts had turned with it. Mike stood at the door, buttoning his jacket, as Emma tugged on her boots, one determined hop at a time. She wore a wool hat with a yarn pom-pom and an oversized scarf Mary had knitted, pink soft and full of sunshine thread according to Emma. "Daddy," she mumbled through the scarf, "my feet are trying to escape." "They're probably going to a warmer state," Mike teased. "Tell them to come back. We have hot chocolate." He tapped her toes. Negotiation accepted. She beamed. It was family morning at the cabin, their new tradition. But before they drove, they had one stop, the police station. Because life, when lived earnestly, doesn't leave unfinished chapters open. Brooke had been cleared. The review found no misconduct, only a moment of human vulnerability in uniform. Integrity intact. Heart protected. Word had already traveled through the small town. She holds the badge, and the badge holds her back up. But today was different. Today she was starting her first shift since returning, and Mike didn't want her to walk into duty alone. They arrived at the station as sunlight began warming the brick facade. Officers milled around, some sipping coffee, others reviewing morning reports. When they saw Mike and Emma barreling toward the front door, like holiday joy in boots, several nodded in quiet respect. Word of sacrifice travels, so does word of grace. Brooke stepped outside, adjusting her duty belt. When she saw them, her face softened, not outwardly dramatic, but in the subtle way armor loosens when trust is near. Emma ran to her, launching a hug. Officer Brooke knelt, steadying the little flurry of scarf and mittens. Morning sunshine. Emma pulled a folded paper from her coat pocket and handed it proudly. A drawing, 3 stick figures again. Daddy, Emma, and Brooke. This time, a cabin and a sky full of stars framed them. But one more figure stood above, simple, outlined in gold crayon, smiling. Brooke's throat tightened. "Who's this one?" Emma pointed gently. "Mommy watches us build the cabin. She says you're helping us put windows in the clouds." Brooke's eyes shimmered. She closed them. Briefly. Breathed. Opened them again. "I'll keep this forever." Mike approached, hands in pockets, warmth in his gaze. "You ready for work?" she asked. "For life," he answered softly. Brooke's lips curved. One shift at a time. Emma tugged on Mike's hand. "Daddy, tell her." Brooke raised a brow. "Tell me what Mike cleared his throat." "Daniel offered me a part-time position back on base. Winter aviation maintenance. I took it." A pause. Feels right again. Brooke's smile widened, pride in her eyes, admiration without envy. Service doesn't end when you return to life. It evolves with you. That's the hope, he said. They stood in quiet understanding, 2 people rebuilding, without rushing, letting life lead instead of fear. "Come on," Emma interjected, dramatic as ever. "It's cabin day, and the trees will get lonely." Brooke laughed. "We can't let the trees down." She rose, looked at Mike tenderly, but still always with honor. "Go. Build. I'll see you after shift." He touched her hand briefly, not claiming, just promising. "We'll save you a seat on the porch, and I'll bring the cocoa." They parted on a breath, not goodbye, the kind of moment that feels like sunrise, resting between 2 hands before the day begins. The cabin was brighter today. Fresh timber shimmered in morning frost, and the porch they'd built together welcomed them like an open chapter. Mike set a thermos on the railing. Emma chased invisible butterflies, humming the song she always made up, for mornings that felt holy. Mike looked at the horizon trees, tall and unbending sky, wide and forgiving. Martha's memory hovered not as shadow, but soft light behind his ribs. He pulled the little wooden box from his coat pocket, the one holding the ring and the letter. He didn't open. It didn't need to. He simply placed it on the porch ledge beside a smooth stone. Emma once called a memory rock. "Thank you," he whispered into the wind. "Not goodbye. Never goodbye. Just gratitude. A familiar voice called from behind. "Talking to the angels, are you?" Mary Bennett walked up the path, cane tapping biscuits wrapped in a cloth, cheeks rosy from the cold. Mike shook his head fondly. One angel in particular. Mary placed the biscuits down. "Well, if she's listening, tell her she raised a good man." He nodded gently. She did. "And tell her," Mary added, eyes soft, "that a good woman will continue the job in her honor." Emma ran up, arms full of pine cones. "Grandma Mary, look forest treasures." Mary chuckled. "If nature ever goes bankrupt, it'll be your fault." Emma blinked solemnly. "I will share with the birds." Mary winked, as saints do. While Emma arranged her treasures, Mike and Mary sat on the porch swing. It creaked in that familiar way, like an old memory stretching awake. Mary studied him quietly. "You look lighter." "I feel grounded again," he said. "Not healed all the way, but living." Mary nodded. "Healing isn't a destination, Michael. It's the way you walk." He leaned back, exhaling long and steady. "Feels like I'm walking toward something good." Mary smiled. "You are. And you're not walking alone." They watched the woods breathe in winter light. Emma twirled with her pine cones, singing to trees only children believe can hear. Then, distant but sweet, a patrol car turned slowly down the gravel road. A familiar figure stepped out, coat-wrapped, tight breath, clouding in the cold. Brooke walked toward them, off shift now, off duty from the world. Mike stood. She joined him on the porch, boots crunching frost. Emma barreled into her with wild joy. Brooke gathered her up, laughing into the child's scarf-scented hair. Then she looked at Mike. Really looked, holding past, present, and tomorrow in her gaze. "I'm here," she said, simply. Mike nodded, heart steady. "Peaceful. Present." "I know." Brooke brushed his hand, gentle, sure. "Not to replace, just to walk beside. And to remind me living is allowed," Mike murmured. She smiled softly. "You remind me too." Emma wedged herself between them, holding each of their hands like she was binding promise to purpose. "Look," she said, pointing to the sky. A single sunbeam broke through winter clouds, golden and warm, landing on the cabin roof as if blessing wood hearts and hope all at once. Emma whispered, "Mommy likes our cabin." Mike's breath trembled, but his voice did not. "She does." Brooke leaned into him, not claiming space, but sharing it. He wrapped an arm around her, not replacing memory, but honoring life. Mary rested a hand over her heart, whispering a prayer the wind carried through the pines. And in that still, holy hush of morning, surrounded by mountains of memory and fields of future promise, love did not compete. It coexisted. It expanded. And the moment settled softly over them like snow that blesses without erasing a quiet truth anchored deep. Real didn't have to be perfect. Real just had to be enough. And here, in a half-built cabin in winter light, with a child's hand in theirs, and heaven not far from earth, real finally was. Before we close today's story, we'd love to hear from you. Where in the world are you watching from? Let us know in the comments. It warms our hearts to see this little community gathering from so many places. If this story touched you, if it reminded you of love of faith, or of the quiet strength inside everyday people, we gently invite you to subscribe to our channel. Your presence here means more than you know, and your support helps us continue sharing peaceful, uplifting stories for souls who still believe in kindness. Thank you for spending this time with us. Thank you for listening with an open heart. Until next time, may peace visit your home, and may hope always find its way back to you.